Yes, we are back. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I have Tomas here with me. My friend, how you doing?
Doing Zack, thanks for having me on again. Last time we were talking about the most recent WWE pay-per-view, Backlash 2020, and tonight
Yes.
we're going to be talking about...
Oh, yes. Here we go. So, you guys, I'm pretty sure have seen the thumbnail, and you're looking at the title of the video right now. Royal Rumble 2002. Why are you picking that show in June of 2020 at the time of filming? But we were talking so much about the year 2002 and how it influenced us as pro wrestling fans. So I kind of came up with an idea for some new content for you guys. So every month, expect a new review from Tomas and I in chronological order, every single pay-per-view from the year 2002. We're going to give you kind of a retrospective because a lot of wrestling fans have said that this is the best overall year in professional wrestling from beginning to end. We're going to see with these videos whether or not that's the case, or we still think that's the case. What do you think first going in?
Going into this, and right off the bat, thoughts about the pay-per-view. This definitely brings back a lot of nostalgia for me. And yes, it was a couple of months before I started watching wrestling. But of course, going into it, how can you forget this was the year Triple H returned? How can you forget this is when Stone Cold Steve Austin started the what gimmick that has the wrestling community divided to this day? This is the year where Kurt Angle finally started catching fire. This is the year where, you know, a lot of the stars that we just loved either were starting to peak or they were starting to kind of peter out. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. And this was pre-John Cena, everyone who would start making their ascend in 2002 as well. And we still got some mainstays like you would see this year, like The Undertaker, like Big Show, like Kane, like Chris Jericho, household names in the WWE.
Of course, yeah. No, and 2002 brings so much nostalgia for me personally. That's a really great point. I mentioned that WrestleMania 18, that was both of our first tapes that we got. But for me personally, this Royal Rumble 2002 was the second tape that I ever watched because I mentioned SmackDown Just Bring It in our last review and how much that impacted my fandom. The one game type I was always playing on that game was the Royal Rumble match. I love this stipulation with all my heart. It's like Christmas every single year still for me. And this is actually one of my favorite Royal Rumble pay-per-views personally before we ever get into the nitty-gritty here.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, I love the pay-per-view. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. So before we start getting into the pay-per-view itself, I have usually 3 bullet points of build of important things that were happening before the pay-per-view. And the first one is something you kind of touched on, Tomas, is the return of Triple H. He had a career-threatening quad injury back in May of 2001. It was almost a 5-star match in San Jose, of all places. 8 months of grueling rehabilitation. He returns in Madison Square Garden to a huge pop.
To this day, I do not think another wrestler has gotten a bigger ovation for returning than Triple H had in MSG.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And the interesting thing about that is that he was one of the most hated performers going out. And on his return, he's one of the most beloved people in the company.
A hero's welcome.
Yeah,
One thing that I noticed right away from the opening hype package of the Royal Rumble, and we will get more into this when we get into the Royal Rumble match, but there were basically only 3 men that mattered in this Royal Rumble match. Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was going for number 4. He is the only person to ever win 3 Royal Rumbles ever. Kurt Angle, who is a white hot right now, and he's going into this match with a lot of momentum. And of course, the returning Triple H, who everyone had their money on to win this Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah. He was the most obvious choice going in to win this match, just judging from the storytelling perspective. Kurt Angle was the one who interrupted Triple H's return promo. He was Kurt Angle was just such a great heel. He was the most obnoxious little pissant you could ever imagine, but he was so damn gifted in the ring. Stone Cold Steve Austin, like you mentioned, he was kind of floating around, kind of in the middle of everything, not like too big of feuds. I remember he was feuding with Booker T going into the show
was definitely in a weird position of his heel run was starting to wear off. So, and I noticed WWE does this with a lot of wrestlers, especially nowadays. Instead of giving them a definitive face turn, it's just like, hey, they're already cheering for Austin, so why do we need to turn him babyface? He can just be a babyface or kind of a tweener, and Austin can start saying what for whatever reason, and it'll start catching on, and people
Which,
chant what to this day, and some
yeah,
fans hate it, and some fans love it. Some fans think it's the cancer of wrestling fans. There are some fans that are saying, "Hey, why don't you chill out a little?" It's something that Stone Cold said in 2001. It's not that big a deal anymore. But the
yeah.
what chant will forever have the wrestling community divided, and
And
you either think it's the worst thing in the world, or you kind of just tolerate it.
no denying it's the most over chant on any show in early 2002 for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was one bullet point, Triple H returning. The second one, we kind of mentioned Chris Jericho's name earlier. There was a mini tournament at the pay-per-view before this, Vengeance 2001, to crown the undisputed World Wrestling Federation champion. Chris Jericho gets the upset win in that tournament, beating The Rock and then Stone Cold in the same night to become the champion. A lot of people thought that was a long shot.
And you know what? To this day, Chris Jericho will not let you forget that he defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock in the same night to become the undisputed champion.
Still, yep, absolutely. My one problem that I have with this whole mini tournament, I feel like this match would have been so much better if it was just a fatal four-way elimination match. I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like,
but you got to remember this is post Attitude Era. We still got to have some sort of gimmicks around.
yeah, I feel like you could have still had the gimmick though. With like, I mean, you could have just had Austin eliminate Angle like 9 minutes in. I mean, it
A
could have
fatal
been a
four-way elimination would have been probably a better. But then again, then Jericho couldn't say he beat Austin and Rock in the same night to win the undisputed championship.
he could add Angle. Well, I mean, he could have pinned both in the same match still too. Like, I mean, like his
That's a very
match.
good point.
His match with The Rock that night, I remember he beat The Rock using his own finishing move, the Rock Bottom, which I
Yes.
felt was kind of like anticlimactic. I was like, that's it? I mean, you could have
Yeah.
just had like a fatal four-way, and then you could have just eliminated The Rock with that move or something, but,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
you
And
know.
remember, this is years before Chris Jericho had the Code Breaker or the Judas Effect. So when you can't make your opponent tap out, it's kind of hard. Steal their finisher. Why not?
Well, he's got the Lion Salt, too, which is, I think, is a pretty sweet finisher.
Oh yeah.
But yes, Chris Jericho is, of course, the undisputed champion going into the show, and he is the most arrogant little pissant going in. Oh, man, his promos were so good.
To avoid getting into the tangent now, let's just say I will be saving my thoughts on Chris Jericho's initial world title run when we get to his match with The Rock.
Yes,
for the
absolutely.
title.
100%. And the last bullet point I wanted to talk about was the big feud that Vince McMahon had going into this show with his fellow business partner, co-owner 50-50 of the WWF at the time in storyline, Ric Flair, who returned the night after Survivor Series 01 for the winner-take-all match. The Alliance dead. Invasion Angle dead. Ric Flair comes in his hometown of Charlotte as the consortium that Shane and Steph sold their stock to. And all I'm thinking now in 2020 when watching this is, where was Ric Flair during the invasion?
Very good point. To this day, fans will still talk about where was Goldberg, where was Sting, where was Kevin Nash, where was Hulk Hogan, where was Ric Flair. The Alliance angle, invasion angle in WWE is the biggest missed opportunity, I think, in the history of professional wrestling.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like it had something to do with the Time Warner contracts. Were like,
it was either, if you're a guy like Hogan or Hall or Nash, are you going to go and work for the WWE, or are you going to go home and sit on your ass and collect that paycheck?
or Goldberg, or like Sting especially was the one that held out.
Exactly.
But I don't know if I don't have much knowledge about that whole situation on like, I mean, other than Goldberg and Sting, I know for sure, but like Ric Flair, like, I don't know if he was under contract with AOL at that point, but
Yeah, there were huge names missed from that Alliance angle, and it still depresses a lot of fans to this day that the invasion angle wasn't what it was supposed to be.
yeah, 100%. But yeah, the invasion angle missed opportunity, which leads us into, of course, the end of the year 2001 and into the show we're talking about tonight, WWF Royal Rumble 2002. January 20th of that year, live on pay-per-view and from the Phillips Arena in Atlanta. As we mentioned earlier, great opening video package with some sound bites of the past 14 Rumble winners and the current Rumble crop. I'm going to get into a big tangent about some of the participants in a little bit. But I will say it's a great opening video package. We get the obligatory pyro, of course. Beautiful, beautiful. The opening matches for the tag team titles. The Dudley Boyz are the challengers. Stacy Keibler in their corner. Going up against the champions, Spike Dudley and Tazz.
First point I'm going to bring up, who remembers when Tazz and Spike were the tag team champions? Because I sure as hell don't.
You know what's funny? I feel like Spike Dudley's gimmick was teaming up with anybody he could find to try and take down his brothers, and Tazz is the one that works. No disrespect against Tazz, but if the Big Show doesn't work against the Dudleys, like, it doesn't really make sense that Tazz would work against them.
Oh, yeah, and my first bullet point about this match, actually it's the second, but I'll go back to the first in a second, is that Tazz and Spike are pathetic. Tazz and Spike are waddling their way out to the ring, and Spike has a neck brace, and they just look like these two little boys that are just like, Bubba Ray and Devon, can you not bully us tonight, please? And how funny is it is that they're the pathetic baby faces going in as champions, and even though the Dudley Boyz are heel, they still got a huge ovation going into this match because they're the Dudley Boyz.
They also had Stacy Keibler as their valet, which I'm sure helps with that pop. And Jerry Lawler could not help but salivate at the sight of Stacy Keibler. This type of commentary could not go over well in the year 2020.
100%. My first bullet point was Jerry Lawler is a perv, but it's classic Lawler. I don't approve of it, but
yeah.
Thankfully, the one women's match we do get in this show isn't tainted as much as trust me, I forgot what this card was, and when I saw there was a women's championship match, I kind of rolled my eyes, but I saw what it was, and I was like, okay, these are two wrestlers. Not to get on about that match. I'll get on about that match when we get to it. But that's just Lawler for you, and not go well in 2020.
No, absolutely not. I also wrote down, so Spike and Tazz won the titles on the January 7th Raw from the Dudley Boyz, and this is the Dudley Boyz rematch. What's funny is that their match on Raw, I thought, was better than this match. Spoiler alert. That match on Raw was a hardcore match. And we just have a regular tag team match here.
Honestly, probably the most confusing booking decision that WWE still does to this day, as they'll have the gimmick match be first, and then they'll regress and go back to a regular match. Disregarding the circumstances, take Edge and Randy Orton, for example. They started off with a last man standing match, and then they're regressing to a regular wrestling match, just so Randy Orton can have the excuse saying, oh, you got lucky in the last man standing match. Why don't you wrestle me in a real match?
That's fair, I suppose. But I felt the hardcore match was so much better than this. I actually went back and watched because I was super curious about why Spike and Tazz were even the champions going in. I wrote down Spike and Tazz is what would happen if you simmed 3 years in a shut-your-mouth universe mode.
100%. Those are definitely two guys you just slap together and kind of see if you can run with it. It goes on in your mind in universe mode.
It is the most random tandem I've ever seen hold the tag titles, but surprisingly, they were a pretty good team back when they were the champions.
The match kicks off. Dudley's attack first. They immediately come out of the gate. They get the offense just to show much how Tazz and Spike are at a disadvantage. Tazz is taken out of the equation early, and if you, with all things, taking everything into account, Tazz is the only thing that's going to keep Spike alive in this match because they are going to murder this kid if Tazz is not there to protect him.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Spike had the neck brace on. Spike did an excellent job selling that neck injury. The heels are working over Spike Dudley. Spike hits a first Dudley dog on Bubba. He gets a tag on Tazz, but the ref does not see it.
Yes.
That's something that no tag team title match these days ever does anymore. It's the false hot tag.
No, 2 points I want to bring up right now is that Jerry Lawler actually had an excellent line saying that, the Dudleys taught Spike how to use that move, and now he's using it against them. Fun little bit of continuity right there. Also love whenever JR calls them those damn Dudleys because the Dudleys are probably the best heel tag team in history. The Dudley Boyz are the best tag team in history, and that's a hot take right then and there.
There you go. Yeah, I think I love the Dudleys. The Hardys are my favorite tag team ever. It's a subjective opinion.
2/3 of what made TLC matches so great right there.
Absolutely. But false hot tag on Tazz. And the bullet I wrote after that is the height on that flapjack. that must mean that they threw Spike Dudley up in the air so far up that the little guy was stuck in the ceiling.
Oh yeah, he was in orbit.
Like,
But back to your point about the false hot tag, I feel like tag team matches, tag team wrestling nowadays, they don't have that certain psychology that this match had when you have like, the teams working over the body parts, the frequent tags in and out, the false hot tag. Same with, that spot right there. Tazz is distracted by the referee. That gives Bubba and Devon an opportunity to work on Spike some more. And I think the best part about tag team wrestling is how well you can cut that ring in half and keep your opponent on that side of the ring and not let them get to your partner. Nowadays, you don't see that anymore. You don't see that classic tag team psychology that even in a match that has a thrown together tag team like Tazz and Spike Dudley has back in 2002.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And the Dudley Boyz were such pioneers in that style of tag team psychology. They were just the classic heels. Bubba Dudley especially was such a phenomenal heel. He got under the crowd's skin, and Devon too. But like, oh man, yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. But eventually, Spike does get the hot tag to Tazz, and I wrote down Suplex City, bitch.
Tazz made Suplex City before Brock Lesnar was throwing his jockstrap in college.
Yeah, but we'll get to Brock Lesnar in a little bit on this 2002 perspective. But beautiful, beautiful selling by the Dudleys on the comeback here. Tazz with a beautiful Northern Lights suplex for a nice near fall. The finish happens when Spike hits a second Dudley dog on Bubba. Stacy Keibler gets up on the apron. She goes to slap Tazz, and Tazz slaps the Tazz mission on Stacy. Something we never see anymore.
Nope. Unless her name is Stephanie McMahon, because Stephanie McMahon is the only woman that likes to take bumps from men nowadays.
Yeah, spear from Roman Reigns.
Spike gets dumped. Devon taps out to the Tazz mission. Upset victory right there, in my opinion. Tazz and Spike are able to retain the World Wrestling Federation tag team titles in this fun little opener of a match. I gave it 2.5 stars. I think it was a fun way to get the crowd hyped for this show. Wasn't too long, wasn't too short, got the job done.
Yeah. I wrote the same thing down. 2.5 stars. It was like the perfect average opener. Got the crowd hyped. It's tag team matches are perfect to get the crowd hyped up for a show like this. I thought the hardcore match, like I said, was better. Maybe this match was a little bit cleaner, but in terms of using the weapons, all these guys have the ECW background also. So I felt like that definitely helped. But yeah, I mean, it was a fine little 5-minute match to get the crowd hyped up and the faces go over.
Oh yeah. We move on to next that Edge is getting interviewed for his Intercontinental Championship match against William Regal. The whole backstory to this match is that William Regal has been blessed with the power of the punch. Talking about his trademark brass knuckles that he managed to get into every match. Edge is pissed. Edge says that if Regal wants to fight dirty, he can fight dirty too. Edge pulls out a steel chair. You fight fire with fire. Edge is hyped. Edge is pissed. He's ready to go into this match, defending his Intercontinental title.
Yes, 100%. I wrote down that William Regal is the best to never win a world title in any promotion.
Watching this match, I remember, and going back into some nostalgic points about 2002, growing up, William Regal was always just that little snake. He cheated to win. His finisher is using a weapon. Taking away all of his mat wrestling skills, we knew Regal as the brass knucks guy. He cheated to win, and you just hated him for it. But looking back at it as an adult, William Regal is the most underrated wrestler in WCW, in WWE, in any wrestling promotion, and that man deserves a whole wing dedicated to his career in the Hall of Fame. I am so happy this man is still with WWE to this day because he deserves every accolade that he has.
Absolutely right. Yeah, current NXT general manager, by the way, on TV. But yeah, Regal using the brass knucks. He's a wily veteran. And during that interview, Edge also says that the chair broke William Regal's nose, which will come into play in the psychology later. Edge comes out to Never Gonna Stop by Rob Zombie.
If Edge's current theme song wasn't as iconic as it is, that Rob Zombie theme song is the one I grew up with, and it is my personal favorite theme song Edge has ever had.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about Edge in this 2002 perspective because he showed just how much potential he had. He was right on the cusp of getting that big push. The brand extension will certainly help him later. There was no brand extension in play, but he's the current Intercontinental Champion. He showed so much intensity in this match. Before the match even starts, though, Nick Patrick, the referee, is kind of searching around the ring for something as if Regal's going to bring a weapon. And he's searching Regal's, like, attire, and he finds something in his tights, and it's a pair of brass knuckles. And so Regal is pretty much out of ammo before the match even begins. And Regal has some of the best funny reactions to things ever. Like the referee reaching for the knucks. I was just like,
oh yeah. The ref was definitely digging for some gold down there as well.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is excellent for Regal's character and his heel persona is that he never admits that he is using the brass knuckles. He says that he is blessed with the power of the punch. Even Jerry Lawler plays along saying that he has the meanest right hand in all of professional wrestling. It can even take out Mike Tyson. Regal is in complete denial that he uses the brass knucks. But us as fans, we know that he cheats.
Absolutely. Like I said, wily veteran for sure. This match, definitely a very methodical match. Regal has some great selling to the nose injury. Nice DDT by Edge on the apron at one point that looked like it really hurt. Edge, like I said, good intensity. He goes for an execution at one point, which is countered into the Regal stretch, which is just essentially an STF. Edge gets to the ropes. Edge puts the Regal stretch on Regal for a little bit.
Definitely some excellent chain wrestling right there. There was some unique styles right there. I feel like Regal was making Edge work in this match, and it definitely showed in a show that Edge isn't just when you look at Edge, he's like the 2000 surfer guy, the 2000 snowboarder guy. He's got the sunglasses, he's got the long hair, and you don't really think much of him, but Regal made him work in this match, and this was the match to show that Edge can work.
Absolutely, 100%. He showed a lot of great athleticism as well, going for missile drop kicks from the top rope. Edge threw a mean drop kick back then. I think he still does.
Oh, yeah.
The finish of the match, Edge goes for a spear. Regal pulls referee Nick Patrick in the way, and Edge hits the referee instead. But Regal hits Edge with the power of the punch with a second pair of brass knuckles, which has been hidden somewhere. The referee eventually recovers, and the wily veteran Regal pins Edge, who is unconscious, and Regal is the new Intercontinental Champion.
I give this match a 3.25 stars. It was definitely super fun to watch. It was definitely that catch-as-cam style wrestling that I feel like they were transitioning into. This is kind of post-Attitude Era right now. We're transitioning out of the Shock TV. We're transitioning out of the Jerry style television. It's time to get pro wrestling back to its roots, and I think Regal and Edge put on an excellent match right here. Regal was fantastic. Fun chain wrestling from both of them. Fun match.
Absolutely, yeah. Very fun match, I agree. I definitely feel like the match was above average. I would grade it about a 3 stars out of 5 if I had to give it a solid grade. My one problem with it is that I feel like this match would have benefited a lot more if it got more time.
Most definitely. Like I said, fun chain style wrestling right there. Good stuff from both Regal and Edge. After the match, excuse me.
It's all good. It's all good. I should just pop open a Code Red right now. You know?
After the match, Regal goes up on the ramp. Michael Cole, a very, very, very young Michael Cole, who is still
I forgot about that.
Career as a backstage announcer, is interviewing Regal saying, how can you win that match in such a heinous way? Regal is still in complete denial, says that he won with the power of the punch. And that is just some excellent heel work from Regal right there.
My question is, how is Michael Cole so much better in the earlier stages of his career than he is now?
I feel like we need to dedicate an entire episode to Michael Cole.
Michael Cole was so much more tolerable back then. He was so much more excited, and now it's just like I'm watching SmackDown, and I'm just like, a lot of this is so, like, he has done so much for the industry. I have all the respect in the world for him, but like a lot of his delivery now it just feels so disingenuous.
Like Michael Cole, if there's no fans in the arena right now, you got to carry the show.
Yeah. I mean, his feud with Bayley is one of my favorite feuds going on right now. But anyway, yeah, great interview afterwards. Regal's the new champion.
Coming up next is the Women's Championship match with special guest referee Jacqueline. Jazz versus Trish Stratus. Oh my goodness, if Jazz was around today, she would fit perfectly in the women's division.
Yes.
is a wrestler. True and true. She is not a pretty face. She is not a gimmick. She's not there to be eye candy. She is a wrestler. And watching this match, I forgot how much I love Jazz.
Jazz was, oh man, right to your point. Jazz was a badass. I wrote down that she is a better version of Nia Jax.
Oh, I wish Jazz was still around nowadays in the current wrestling scene.
Yeah, at least like very reserved opinions, of course, but at least Jazz doesn't hurt her opponents. But anyway, so yeah, to your point, Jacqueline is the special guest referee. Trish Stratus has a cast on her, I forget which hand, but yeah, pretty much Trish has a hand injury from an altercation on the previous SmackDown between the two. There's a nice sequence early on of cradle reversals. Jazz and Jackie get into infighting. They're shoving each other. Jazz has an inside cradle on Trish, and Jackie, the babyface, refuses to count for the heel.
Definitely some fun special guest referee stuff right there. Jacqueline is another one. I feel like she would have thrived a little better if she was in today's wrestling scene. I'm glad she got the accolades that she deserved. I'm glad she's in the WWE Hall of Fame right now. But definitely some fun back and forth stuff between her and Jazz. The finish, Jazz hits a big DDT after the Stratus faction. Stratus hits another Stratus faction to win the match. It was a fun women's match. And, I rated it 2.25 stars, but you got to understand, back in 2002, that's a good rating for the women.
It is.
This was not a lingerie pillow fight. This was not a Playboy match. This wasn't a match where the women are just there to be eye candy. This was a wrestling match between two of the best women's wrestlers that WWE had.
Absolutely. And Trish Stratus was all over the women's division in 2002, as you'll notice. But yeah, so she hits a Stratus faction at one point, to your point. But I think the end of the match, I wrote down that she just hit a regular bulldog on Jazz.
You are correct. I'm looking at my notes right here, and it says Stratus wins with bulldog. Oh, that's probably the Stratus faction. But no, you are right. She did win with the bulldog.
Yeah. Lawler called it the Stratus faction, but I was just like, she did not spring off the ropes at all for the three. That was just a regular bulldog. Which is a weird psychology there. I rated the match about 1 3/4. My one reasoning behind that is, again, you're going to sense a pattern here with this show with me. This is a match that only went 3 minutes. It would have benefited from at least a couple more minutes, at least some more time,
Oh, yeah. It looks like they were reserving more of the time for some of the main events. Yeah. But definitely, you got to have that undercard. Let them go out there and work.
Definitely decent match, though, for the time given. One of the better women's matches of this year, for sure. Oh, yeah. Which brings us to one of our main events, like you talked about. It is the street fight. No rules, anything goes, as Howard Finkel says. Mr. McMahon versus Ric Flair. Note, this is Ric Flair's first match since facing Sting on the final Nitro, March 2001.
And this is Flair's first match back in the WWE, if I'm not mistaken.
Since 1993.
Yep. That was the first time Flair was back in WWE since then. And how appropriate for this pay-per-view to be in WCW country.
In Atlanta, that's right. Absolutely. Also of note, might
as well be Flair Country 2.0.
Might as well have been Flair Country 2.0, because he actually had two of his kids at ringside, Megan and Reed Flair. May he rest in peace. They were at ringside for the match. Reed looked very concerned for his father. Vince McMahon comes out, and he is the most jacked I've ever seen him.
Can we just agree right now that Vince obviously took steroids?
I have very reserved opinions about that. But as a heel, Vince McMahon was such a bastard in every way possible. He showed that in this match. Great hype package. Also, I forgot to mention, I have the direct quote of Vince in the sit-down interview saying, "I enjoy destroying lives. It turns me on, especially an icon like Ric Flair." What a bastard.
Vince, character-wise, he is the greatest heel in history.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He was the one willing to inject poison into his own creation. If you just look back in the past and you think of all the Vince McMahon quotes, you have to think to yourself, did he really say these things? And absolutely, yes, he did.
There are so many Vince McMahon GIF-worthy quotes throughout the years. 2002, definitely no exception. But this match starts, there's a stare down, and these two fellas are circling around the ring, and they lock up. This is the same problem that I had with Jeff Hardy and Sheamus that we reviewed a couple of months ago. This is a blood feud, and these guys are locking up.
more with Vince and Flair because they actually do have ill feelings towards each other. When you have Jeff Hardy and Sheamus, it just felt like they're booked in a match on a pay-per-view. This is actually a grudge match right here. And I actually had a bullet point that said obligatory chain wrestling in the beginning.
Yep.
I feel like no matter what kind of match it is, they got to get the lockup in. They got to get the side headlocks in. They got to get the leapfrogs in. Even when it's Vince versus Flair, they got to get some sort of awkward transition into the violence.
Even when Vince is overpowering Ric Flair at most points in this early going. And he does the Flair strut.
Yes. Going into this match, Vince is mocking Flair. He's doing the Flair chops. He's doing the Flair strut. And honestly, looking through this, Vince was in control for a very large portion of this match.
Yes.
He's sticking his finger in Flair's eye. He's hitting Flair with the street sign. He takes his bloody face to his family, takes a camera, and takes a picture of himself with a bloody Flair.
Yes, the keep off sign, I think, in the entranceway. That's a classic sign right there.
Yes.
And that keep off sign is actually unprotected shot to Flair's head, which looks scary. And that's where the Flair blade job starts, the obligatory Flair blade job in any Flair street fight. He gives a scoop slam to Ric Flair right in front of his children. And to your point, he takes the camera from Megan and starts taking selfies with that DSLR from 2002. And you know, oh man, that spot would have been so much easier if it was 10 years later when iPhones were out.
Oh yeah. Vince tried though, and
he definitely did.
And to your point, yes, there was this was definitely a lot of a methodical match, but I thought Vince was doing a very good job working over Flair's leg, doing a very good job torturing Flair, like you said. These two told a very good story.
Yes.
It starts to turn its tide when Vince pulls out the lead pipe that he did introduce into this feud. He
Great
goes
call
for the lead pipe shot, and Flair hits a classic low blow to start his comeback.
Yes, 100%. I believe Vince also put the figure 4 on Ric Flair at one point. I wrote down also that Vince was never the greatest athlete or in-ring technician.
Oh, absolutely not.
But to your point,
if he's going to talk about his grapefruit so much, he passed those genes down to his son, Shane, who is also not a good wrestler.
Oof. Roasted. But yeah, to your point, great storytelling. Vince puts him in the figure 4. He brings the lead pipe into play. Great callback. Low blow by Flair. Back outside, and Flair takes a TV monitor and hits Vince in the head with it. And this is my favorite moment of the match, by the way. Flair takes the TV monitor and he's like, "Show me a replay, damn it!" And then he puts the monitor down, and the cameraman, bless his heart, actually zooms in on the monitor, and it gives us the replay right there.
That was a fun spot right there.
I was like, oh, if you could just hold on to it for a little bit longer. But, man.
Once Flair starts going to his comeback, he gets revenge on Vince by dragging his bloody face back to his family. Megan snaps a picture of a bloody Vince McMahon. Vince is begging for mercy at this point. Flair's not letting up. Flair nails Vince with the lead pipe in a nasty shot to the head.
Yes.
Figure 4, Vince taps out. In a very simple match, Flair wins. And I thought this was a very fun match. It reminded me of a Flair and Dusty match from back in the 80s. Just pure hatred for one another, pure shots, blood, weapon shots. Not too much. It was not too much violence, in my opinion, which I think a blood match, not a blood match, a grudge match should be. There shouldn't be buckets and buckets and buckets of blood, but the two guys hate each other. So I thought it was fun. I gave it 3.5 stars.
Yeah, that's actually what I rated it too. This match was so much better than it had any right to be. Vince McMahon, to your point, bladed, I believe, after the monitor shot, not the I don't think it was the lead pipe shot, but he definitely did hit him hard on the head with it. Flair put the figure 4 on him, and Vince looked so terrified being in the figure 4. It was such a great sell. Vince taps out. It's a 14-minute match. This match was so much better than it had any right being. I didn't like this as much as Vince versus Hogan at Mania 19 a year later. But again, you're noticing a pattern from me. This could have benefited so much more with just a couple more minutes.
Now that I'll agree with you there. This match definitely could have gone a little longer. There could have been a little more methodical spots. It just felt like it ended so quickly. But at the same time, I think this match served its purpose very well.
100%. Absolutely.
Moving on from this match, Michael Cole is interviewing Nick Patrick about the Edge and Regal finish. Stephanie interrupts, says that Triple H is going to destroy everyone in the Royal Rumble, including Stone Cold Steve Austin, including his wife Deborah, when just by pure coincidence, Stone Cold Steve Austin is right behind Stephanie, starts screaming what in her face, screams what to the point where Stephanie just loses it and runs away, continues to toil Michael Cole enough, continues saying what. This is Stone Cold Steve Austin's gimmick now. Absolutely.
Did she run from Stone Cold out of fear or annoyance?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a combination of both.
Yeah, absolutely. But to your point, this was pretty much a fun what promo just to get the crowd hyped up for the Rumble later. That brings us to our semi-main for the Undisputed World Wrestling Federation Championship. Chris Jericho, the champion, as we mentioned previously, taking on my favorite wrestler of all time, The Rock. The Rock got this match by pinning Booker T in a number one contenders match on SmackDown. And there was a fantastic video package before this match, along with a fantastic promo between The Rock and Jericho on the Go Home show. This, if you haven't seen this promo, Tomas, in its entirety, I definitely recommend you check it out. And that goes to any of my viewers also. This was so amazing. The Rock, this is the same segment as the infamous Rock Cam segment where he takes the video camera from the dude and he actually starts filming the cameraman. And he's like, does this like a man who's going to win the Royal Rumble? Same segment. Jericho interrupts him, and it's almost like a worked shoot at that point. Jericho
this feud is basically revolving around Chris Jericho is saying, I am the undisputed champion. You will not overlook me, Rock, and Rock, you will not look past me. And that just screams volumes to me because I'm going to go into my next point. Why did they put the world title on Chris Jericho if they were going to treat him like this?
Yeah, it's... Oh, yeah, that's
and on the flip side, do you think Jericho was ready for the world title this early in his career? Because if you look at a 2020 Chris Jericho and you look at a 2002 Chris Jericho, there definitely was some room for improvement and growth in Jericho. Definitely took advantage of that. But in 2002, was Jericho ready to be world champion?
That's a great question. Honestly, I'm going to answer yes, just based on the fact that Jericho had always been on the cusp of the main event scene. I'm going to talk a little bit about his No Mercy match with The Rock to go along with this. And the crowd was so behind Chris Jericho winning the WCW title from The Rock. He had always been on the cusp. I feel like he was ready at that point, but as a babyface champion, not as a heel. You know what I mean? I feel like if he had like Daniel Bryan's gimmick in 2002 instead of what this was.
If you look back to the infamous Chris Jericho wins the title and then 17 minutes later he had to give it back, I think Jericho was in a better spot there to win the world title as opposed to when he was champion.
Yeah, I mean, he had only been in the company for I think 6 months at that point though.
Oh yeah, just the aura that segment gave. If you go back to that segment, I always look at it and think, wow, they should have just put the title on Jericho.
Yeah, and Triple H was all over the product then too, and we'll be talking a lot about Triple H in this retrospective.
Yeah.
But The Rock walks out. This is, by the way, my favorite version of The Rock's theme. It's so grand, and it always feels like a big deal whenever the electric guitar comes in, and I don't even know what that instrument is. I don't know if it's it's like a.
Is it just me, or does The Rock just tower over Jericho in this match?
Yeah, The Rock
comparison, he is huge compared to Jericho.
Jericho is, Jericho was always a light heavyweight as it was considered, and The Rock was always considered to be what Vince McMahon saw in a poster child, I suppose. But great trash talking between the two. Jericho puts his hand up in The Rock's face and gives him "Just Bring It" right in it.
Gotta get those mind games. If you're not going to believe in Jericho, then you got to get those mind games out there.
Yeah, and to anybody that's watching this video and thinking that The Rock was just a musclehead and he couldn't work in the ring, go back and watch his matches with Chris Jericho and watch this match and try and tell me that again, because this match was outstanding. The Rock was so intense right out of the gate. Chris Jericho is such a great storyteller. He exposes the turnbuckle pretty early on. He tries to put the walls on The Rock pretty early, rolls out of it. Y2J continues to work him over. The Rock was so good in this match. Oh.
I feel like Jericho working over Rock was Similar to how Regal was working over Edge, Jericho was making Rock work in this match. Some great stuff, especially when Jericho was working over Rock the entire time. Great sequence I have written down here. A super spinning wheel kick from Jericho. Suplex, takes the turnbuckle pad off. Beautiful missile drop kick. Beautiful superplex from The Rock. These two were just back and forth in this entire match.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Jericho hits 2 straight lion salts. He hits one, doesn't go for the cover, decides to hit a second one. Not enough to pin The Rock. Y2J gets into it with Earl Hebner, who's the referee. We'll be talking, I feel like we'll be talking a little bit about Earl Hebner and how good he was.
Jericho goes for another missile dropkick. It's reversed into the worst sharpshooter ever. That's a hot take right there. The Rock cannot do the sharpshooter well. The Rock is talented. He's a fantastic wrestler. He's one of the greatest of all time. Not the best sharpshooter.
I think it's a pretty decent sharpshooter, man. I don't know. That counter was absolutely beautiful. I feel like that's one of my favorite sharpshooters that he's done, but he's in the sharpshooter. And then we get really random interference from Lance Storm and Christian, who I guess their connection is they're both Canadian, like Chris Jericho.
Looking at that, if this would have happened nowadays, the first thing you would have thought was, oh, Storm, Christian, and Jericho are going to form an alliance. Kind of like Seth Rollins, Austin Theory, and Murphy are today, but no, nothing like that.
Yeah, that would have been a pretty powerhouse stable because, I mean, Christian was the European champion at this point. Lance Storm was pretty underutilized from the invasion angle. I feel like if Jericho took them both in as his lackeys, maybe with Test as his heater, like that would have been a pretty solid stable right there.
But at this point, nothing ever came of that. They were just there.
They were kind of tagging in a couple matches, I think, but they weren't officially a thing. Lance Storm is distracting Earl Hebner. Jericho's tapping out, but Earl Hebner does not see it. The Rock fights both of them off, and then Jericho hits a rock bottom. The same
Jericho bottom. That's what I wrote.
The same way he beat him at Vengeance the month before, but The Rock kicks out this time.
Jericho attempts the people's elbows. Rock sends Jericho out to the outside. Rock bottom through the announce table. I feel like whenever this happens, it is such a huge deal because they make that announce table explode from the rock bottom.
Absolutely. And you want to know what I loved about that whole sequence? Couple things, actually. Great commentary by Jim Ross here. He's trying to beg The Rock off into not doing something stupid. He's telling him, you don't want to get disqualified. And he's noticing that the ref is being pretty lenient about what's going on here. But yeah, to your point, rock bottom through JR and King's announce table, which is pretty unique because usually they would go through the Spanish announce table, but this time JR and King are the victims here.
Yes.
And they were like, we got to work here. Come back, God. What are you doing here, man? Yeah, that's my JR
back in
impression.
the ring. Rock bottom is countered into the walls of Jericho, countered into a beautiful roll-up, kick out. Rock hits the ref with a flying forearm, and Jericho hits the Rock with the title belt. Here comes Nick Patrick.
Yes.
This is Jericho's goon ref. Rock kicks out of the title shot hit. Rock hits a DDT, and Nick Patrick refuses to count for the Rock.
For reasons.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes, he's in cahoots with Jericho.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Chris Jericho seemed to me like a lone wolf in this match, but he has Lance Storm and Christian helping him, and then Nick Patrick refuses to count for the Rock, and I don't really get that, honestly.
Yeah, to compare it to future segments, it's kind of like how when Scott Armstrong went into business and screwed Daniel Bryan out of the WWE title. Why did he do it? Don't know. Why did Nick Patrick help out Jericho? Don't know.
I don't know either, man. I mean, it might be leftover heat from the invasion angle that Nick Patrick had with The Rock, but that should have been solved already. The invasion angle's done. But The Rock hits a rock bottom on Nick Patrick. He then hits the people's elbow on Jericho, which is my least favorite finisher ever, aside from the worm. Oh man, I don't want to get into a rant about both these finishers, but okay. The Rock, like I said, is my favorite wrestler of all time. His finisher, though, the people's elbow, I hated it, mostly because the victim was waiting around for so long.
Oh, yeah.
For him to hit it.
Even The Rock himself admits that it's a stupid finisher.
Yeah, it's like, and he's pinning Chris Jericho forever. There's no ref to count it. The Rock would have been the champion if, if the ref was.
And then here comes the dirtiest end to a match that I've ever seen in my life. You got everything. Low blow. Rock goes face first off the exposed turnbuckle. Roll up. Feet on the ropes. Jericho wins. Could you cheat anymore in a match?
Jericho sneaks the win right here. He's a wily veteran, just like William Regal.
Exactly.
But this was such an outstanding match. A lot of people are going to hate this ending, but that's the thing about Chris Jericho. That fits his character. So I didn't mind the ending that much.
He's a heel. Heels cheat.
Yeah, I give it 4.25 stars. This match was outstanding. It kind of overbooked for no reason with Lance Storm and Christian and the referee, Nick Patrick, coming in. But this felt like a legitimate WWF title match on pay-per-view for sure. I like this match more than the Vengeance match, but it's not better than the No Mercy match that they had, in my opinion.
The overbooking did knock it down a few pegs for me. I give it 3.5 stars. Other than that, it was a fun match. Jericho made Rock work. And yeah, definitely a fun wrestling match, a fun WWE title match.
Absolutely, 100%. And one other point that I wanted to make before we move on to the Rumble match. So Jericho was the heel and Rock was the face, as has been established. I feel like I liked this combination better if the roles were reversed. If The Rock was the heel and Jericho was the babyface in peril.
Oh yeah, especially if Jericho was the champion, it would have been a bigger mountain for Jericho to have to climb. And if he would be able to squeak out a victory, it would have looked a lot better.
Yeah.
Just get a quick roll up. And hey, Jericho doesn't have to be a good guy. He can still put his feet on the ropes. And then Rock can throw a tantrum after the match, and Jericho can just run up the ramp with the title. It could have worked.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mind the ending, though, to this match. If you don't believe me about the role reversal, check out their No Mercy 2001 match. The crowd was so behind Chris Jericho. They wanted to see him achieve that greatness finally. He'd always been on the cusp. But at this point, Jericho's the heel champion, and they're just like, But this is still a very outstanding match for sure. Perfectly worthy of the world title.
And here we are on to everyone's favorite match, the Royal Rumble match.
I'm so excited.
Every 90 seconds, a new participant enters. The winner of this match will get a guaranteed World Championship match at WrestleMania. And I'm going to say this right now. This match only revolved around these people. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Kurt Angle, and The Undertaker.
Yes,
Those
absolutely.
Combatments in this match that actually mattered.
Oh, The Undertaker. I'm going to get emotional thinking about him right now. But anyway, 2002 Royal Rumble match, 30 men. I loved before the match the King's plea to the Fink to please wrap up the rules because he was just as excited as we were as fans.
I feel like that's me every year during the Royal Rumble. It's like, yeah, you got to explain the rules because there's people that don't know. But it's like, come on, get on with it. We want to see the participants. We want to open our presents. This is what we wait for every year.
Yes. Yeah. So the number 1 entrant is Rikishi, who was the number 30 entrant the previous year. And Jerry Lawler teases the possibility of 29 stink faces in this match.
That is 100% something I would not want to see.
Number 2 is Gold Dust.
Making his return to the WWE.
Yes. And this is a point that I wanted to make here, my friend. So, okay. So you have those 4 main eventers that the match revolves around. Taker, Austin, Hunter, Angle. Perfect. The hype for this match, the WWF also found the need to announce the surprise entrance in advance in the form of Gold Dust. In the form of people like Gold Dust. Yeah, I'll reveal them later in case you haven't seen it. But wouldn't have been much more effective of a pop if Gold Dust just showed up?
Oh, yeah. 100%. That's why you don't announce. Imagine if they announced Edge for 2020. That would have killed the entire mystique. Even though some of us fans kind of had a feeling he was going to show up, we still didn't know. And when he came out, it was a surprise. Imagine if they said the Raw before, oh, hey, Edge is coming back. It would have taken all the mystique away from it.
Exactly, yeah. Imagine if Goldust just showed up. He got a pretty big pop coming out, and he gets his grand entrance, of course, like the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But, I mean, I feel like this return would have been so much more effective if he just walked out.
Yep.
But and that goes for all the surprise entrants. There's 4 of them, and I'll make sure to reveal them as we go through the match. Not much is happening through the first 2-minute interval. Number 3 is the Big Boss Man.
And there's going to be a lot of these entrants that we're just going to have to spit out because they have no hype.
Yeah.
These are it's the Jobber Rumble.
Yeah. Number 3 is the Boss Man.
Number 4 is next out. Number 5 is Storm returning from his
Mr. Personality, Lance Storm. I think your audio cut out real quick. Number 4 was Bradshaw. by the way.
Yeah, I said Bradshaw, so I did cut out then.
Yeah. Bradshaw got a huge pop from the crowd, by the way. APA was such an overact on the
Oh, yeah.
undercard. 2 years later, Bradshaw would be JBL and the WWE champion, just a side note.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote down...
Number 6 is my least favorite wrestler of all time, Al Snow. I hate this guy.
He's the head coach of Tough Enough. As they hype.
You know what? Since we're going to be, a lot of these participants, we're just going to be rolling by. I'm going to just go on my tangent now that Al Snow is probably one of the most overrated wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. I did not like his gut check gimmick in TNA. I thought it was him thinking he was a bigger star than he actually ever was, and him just spewing crap. I don't know. There's something about Al Snow that just rubs me the wrong way. But to kind of get away from the anger, I'm going to share a fun story about Al Snow.
Yeah.
You know, we're 8 years old watching wrestling, and a lot of the jokes in Attitude Era Wrestling kind of go over your head. You don't understand anything. So what was Al Snow's gimmick? He had head. And when he would come out to the ring, they would say, what does everybody want? Head. What does everybody need? Head. Me, my innocent 8-year-old self, would think, what does everybody want? Al Snow. What does everybody need? Al Snow. I didn't know a head. I never knew they were saying head. Me and my brother would just say, whenever Al Snow would come out to the ring, me and my brother would echo the what does everybody want with Al Snow.
Al Snow, everybody's favorite jobber. Before we move on, though, I wrote down best stink face ever on Boss Man.
If there ever was a best stink face ever, I guess you could say it was that one.
Rikishi tosses him out shortly after. To your point, the crowd chants, "We want head" for Al Snow. And there is a vicious clothesline from hell on Lance Storm.
Oh, say what you want about Bradshaw as a person, but he probably throws the nastiest clothesline you'll ever see in your life.
One of my favorite finishers ever, actually, that clothesline, because he can hit you with it at any instant, and it's always so vicious. Billy Gunn is number 7.
The one Billy Gunn. I know that was the year prior, but I just have to say that because when he was the one Billy Gunn, the WWF would not let you forget about it. He is the one Billy Gunn.
Absolutely.
What does that gimmick mean? I don't know. They were trying everything with this man at this point.
Worth noting, before the next entrant, Al Snow super kicks Lance Storm out like he's one of the Young Bucks. Billy Gunn tosses Bradshaw. And then we get number 8, The Undertaker, who is
At this point, you're probably wondering, wow, this is a lackluster Rumble. Oh, no, here's The Undertaker to come clean house.
Yes, he kills everyone. He clears the yard. He eliminates Goldust. He eliminates Goldust first. Great chokeslam. Then he tosses Al Snow. He tosses Rikishi shortly afterwards. Final stink-based score 1, by the way. He tosses Billy Gunn shortly afterwards, and he's all alone in the ring in his yard. Great call
Coming
by
out
JR.
Number 9 is a very young Matt Hardy. And Matt Hardy has had his issues with The Undertaker. Undertaker has been getting involved with his personal business, so this is Matt Hardy's opportunity to get back at The Undertaker. Who comes out number 10, coincidentally? Matt's brother, Jeff.
Yep.
Who are back on the same page now, because if you remember, prior to this, they were in a feud together, and this feud was going to culminate in a storyline where Jeff was going to kiss Lita, and Jeff refused to do it, so they had to drop the entire angle, and you know what, Jeff Hardy? Good on you. Good on you for standing up to creative.
Yep, and side note, Lita also came out with Matt Hardy, and she actually got in the ring and got some good shots in on The Undertaker, too.
I think my favorite part is when all 3 members of Team Extreme just came in the ring and started kicking the shit out of Undertaker.
Oh, 100%. But Undertaker tosses Jeff pretty nonchalantly. He hits a nasty last ride on Matt. He tosses him out. Once again, he's all alone in the ring. And number 11 is Tough Enough Season 1 winner, Maven.
Are you ready to hear me rant?
Yes.
Maven is number 11. He comes out to the ring. The Hardy Boys come back in to fight off The Undertaker. And then Maven eliminates The Undertaker.
It's great. I loved it.
So growing up, remembering this segment, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was, wow, this up-and-coming talent came in and eliminated The Undertaker. That's going to be a moment forever. But watching it now, I remember, what's Maven doing now?
great point. However, I'm going to actually slightly disagree with you here because this is still an amazing Rumble moment. And this is something that I mentioned. It's mentioned a lot in the Last Ride documentary. But The Undertaker, Mark Calloway was all about investing in potential futures of the company. And I don't know, he saw something in the Hardys and he saw something in Maven enough to work with them enough. And it's kind of a fluky elimination, too. Maven didn't exactly, like, eliminate Taker convincingly. Because you remember, Taker goes back in the ring and he beats the shit out of him.
Exactly. So at this point, I'm thinking about where this progresses. And I'm just like, you don't have someone eliminate The Undertaker and then do absolutely nothing with him. And that's why I hate this elimination so much. Imagine when Brock Lesnar beat the streak, if afterward he just lost every single match for 3 years in a row. They had Lesnar break the streak for a reason. And I feel like Maven eliminating The Undertaker, they should have went somewhere with this, at least to an Intercontinental title run. Because after this, Maven really didn't do anything.
He won the hardcore title from Taker shortly after this, but I mean, the hardcore title was kind of like floating around.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot to mention Taker was the hardcore champion going into this show. But this was, I'm going to disagree. I love this elimination still to this day. The pop that the crowd gets, they're so shocked, and Taker sells it so well. He's been like he's seen a UFO almost. And he looks back in the ring, and Maven has this look on his face like, oh shit, what have I done? And then he's trying to beg off The Undertaker, and then he just starts pounding on the poor lad. He grabs a chair, vicious-looking chair shot, unprotected.
Disgustingly.
Oh, man. Maven's blading. Undertaker throws him back in, and he chucks him over the top rope like he's a piece of garbage. And Taker finds the need to punch the number 12 entrant, Scotty 2 Hottie, as he's dancing to the ring. Which I loved. And this is a
incarnation of The Undertaker I loved so much.
Oh, man. Big evil heel American badass Undertaker was so entertaining. He takes
and then
Maven.
I loved him even more when he turned babyface.
Oh, 100%. Undertaker, oh, man. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time for sure. But Taker takes Maven up to the concourse. He takes him up to the concessions area. He chucks him through a popcorn machine. Maven's bleeding all over the place. And then Taker, with the final shot, starts eating the popcorn, looking down at the poor kid that he just massacred.
My note I put down when he did that was, hey, you can't kick ass on an empty stomach.
Absolutely not. That was just the icing on the cake for this segment. I loved this whole Undertaker segment of the Rumble. It was so well booked. You have him clearing the ring. You have him beating the crap out of the Hardys, wrapping up that storyline. And then you have a potential side feud with Maven established. Like, still
Taker
a
was
elimination.
Taker was killing time until WrestleMania for sure.
Absolutely. And this is
Back
where
to the jobber training.
This is where the slow part of the Rumble comes in. Number
13 is Christian.
Yes. Number 14, former WCW champion Diamond Dallas Page, who has a smiling like an idiot gimmick. Scotty 2 Hottie, who comes back into the ring, hits the worm on Christian. Like I said, my least favorite finisher. Then DDP chucks him out of the ring like a piece of garbage. Number 15,
you know what? Real quick, I got to stop you real quick.
Yeah.
He will never have a successful line of yoga DVDs. I'm just going to say that now.
It's on Shark Tank, dude.
Never will.
Never
will. Just going to say it right now.
The most damning thing about this whole DDP WWE run is it never went anywhere. Like, he comes out at number 14, which is this is actually a great point made by New Legacy Inc., who's a video gaming streaming YouTube channel. They're hilarious, but they mentioned that every single year, the number 14 entrant in the Royal Rumble, usually something terrible happens to them.
That's a very good point. That definitely has happened.
I am still waiting for what is going to happen to Braun Strowman within the year. Dean Ambrose was the entrant in 2019. He ends up leaving the company a couple months afterwards. Shinsuke Nakamura, not so much. I mean, he loses the main event of WrestleMania. I'm not going to go in order, but DDP has the cursed number 14. Number 15 is Chucky Palumbo, who is Billy Gunn's tag partner.
They were transitioning into the Billy and Chuck thing, And before anyone asked, no, I had no issue with that tag team. I
Me
was more
neither.
offended by the one Billy Gunn than I was. I love Billy and Chuck.
Me
Even
neither.
as an 8-year-old ignorant boy, I love that tag team. I thought they were fun.
Billy and Chuck were so over, as we'll talk a lot about later on these
They were funny.
perspectives.
I love them.
Yeah, they were
can't
super
wait till we get
entertaining.
to the. I can't wait until we get into the partner ceremony because that's one of my favorite segments in WWE history.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I'm excited to
Number
talk about that.
Number 16 is a worker that I love, but a gimmick that I hate, and that's the Godfather.
Oh, again, a surprise entrant ruined by an announcement preceding it. Like, could you imagine how huge of a pop the Godfather would have gotten? He gets a big pop here regardless, but if he just showed up with all 12 of those female escorts and like with no previous announcement, do you imagine how big the pop would have been for him?
I think Godfather was a surprise entrant in the 2013 Royal Rumble.
Yes.
And he got thrown out like pretty quickly, but he still got the big pop, and that's what it's about.
Oh, 100%. And 2002, they just announced all the surprise entrants, which is my biggest problem with this match, I think. But Godfather comes in, and Godfather's entrance takes so long that it misses DDP's elimination on camera.
Yeah, that was a little annoying. They should have paid attention a little more to what was going on in the ring, just for a second.
DDP, oh man, he got the short end of the stick in 2002. But anyway,
that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Don't make me cringe too hard, my friend. Number 17 is Albert, quickly tossed by Christian. The Godfather tossed out soon afterwards. Perry Saturn. Yes. Yeah. Scotty 2 Hottie's tag team partner for a little bit. Perry Saturn is number 18. And completing the trifecta of bald Royal Rumble entrants is number 19, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And he is here to clean house once again. Are you starting to notice a pattern with this Royal Rumble match?
Yeah. Well, shit. Yeah. Here, everyone dies.
Train of jobbers cleaned out by Undertaker. Train of jobbers cleared out by Stone Cold Steve Austin. I wonder what's going to happen in the third half of this Rumble.
Oh, man. Yeah, you know what? I really enjoyed the booking of this Rumble overall. Stone Cold comes out and everybody just dies. Stone Cold comes out. He's not taking any bullshit. He gives stunners to everyone. He chucks Christian out. He chucks Chucky out. He chucks Perry Saturn out soon afterwards. He is alone in the ring, and then he realizes, makeshift watch, you know what? I'm going to kick your guys' ass a second time. He brings Christian in, stuns him, throws him out. He brings Chucky in, stunner, throws him out again. And he waits for number 20, Val Venus. Another surprise entrant.
Another gimmick that I hate too. Man, looking back at the Attitude Era, and they just had a lot of gimmicks that I hated. Nothing against Godfather. Like, I love him. Everything against Val Venus because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. Number 21, speaking of shitty Attitude Era gimmicks, is Test, who is Mr. Immunity. Yes. Test had so much potential, and it looked like WWE was going somewhere with him with this Mr. Immunity gimmick. He can't be fired because he won that Battle Royal at Survivor Series. But what happens? Stone Cold chucks Val Venus. He gives a stunner to Test, and Test is gone. Like,
welcome to Jobberdom.
Test had so much potential, and I'm just so upset that WWE dropped the ball with him.
Yep.
Which brings me to number 22, Triple H.
Triple H.
Huge pop.
And I loved how he took his time coming to the ring. I loved how Stone Cold was staring him down the entire time. I loved how they just built up that intensity when Austin and Triple H were finally in the ring together. And not to jump ahead a little, but it took me this long to realize when they were working together against the next combatants, that's a throwback to the two-man power trip.
Absolutely. That's a great point. 100% two-man power trip. Yeah, there's a big stare down between the two. They start kicking the crud out of each other. Triple H gets his whole entrance, stands the water spit on the apron. Number 23 is Hurricane Helms, which probably leads to my favorite spot in this entire Rumble. So Stone Cold and Triple H are both down in the ring from beating the crap out of each other. Hurricane storms in, no pun intended, and he is calling both of the men up for the chokeslam. He gets Triple H goozled in one hand. He gets Stone Cold goozled in the other, and it looks like he's just about to do it, but then both men realize they're in the ring with the Hurricane. And then they all exchange a look, and then they beat the shit out of him. They chuck him out over the top rope, and then they go back to beating the shit out of each other. Like,
real quick tangent, I just think it's so funny how the chokeslam is usually reserved for guys like Braun Strowman, Kane, Big Show, Undertaker. And then we have the Hurricane and Tegan Nox, who also use the chokeslam as their finisher.
hey, but Tegan Nox grew up idolizing Kane, and Kane endorsed her use of the chokeslam.
Not saying there's nothing wrong with Tegan Nox using the chokeslam. It's just funny how that move is usually reserved for the big hosses, and then you just see an average or smaller person doing the chokeslam. It's just like it's just funny to see, in my opinion. But no, Tegan Nox throws a mean chokeslam.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So Austin and Triple H are beating the crap out of each other. Number 24 is Farouk. Nothing of consequence happens here. I think Austin hits a stunner and Triple H tosses him. Number 25, another surprise entrant, Mr. Perfect.
Why would you not want him to be a surprise?
You want to talk about missed opportunities in 2002. Mr. Perfect was a Final Four in this Rumble, and they did absolutely nothing with him after this.
Nope.
And unfortunately, he passes away the year after. I am just still baffled at this.
He never took advantage of that.
But yeah, Mr. Perfect looks so awesome in this match. Needless to say, absolutely perfect.
He reminds me a lot of British Bulldog before he passed away. Bulldog looked really good in 1999, but they never capitalized on him either.
Well, at least Bulldog was like on pay-per-views and stuff. Mr. Perfect, I think this was his only pay-per-view appearance in 2002.
Yeah, Bulldog was in pay-per-views until he got rock bottom into dog poo.
Well, he was in. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm not I'm not trying to think about 1999 right now. But yeah,
I don't think you can recover from getting rock bottom into dog poo.
And the greatest call of Michael Cole's career. The dog poop! The dog poop! Speaking... Number 26 in his very first Rumble match is Kurt Angle. You suck chance.
White hot.
Oh, yeah. There is you suck what chance before the you suck chance became like the popular thing. The crowd was kind of cashing on to chanting you suck in tune, but it wasn't like a full-fledged thing on TV yet. Number 27, lucky number 27 is the Big Show, who runs wild on everybody for a bit, chokeslams Hunter. Number 28 is Kane, who, if you recall...
I feel like they saved the heavy hitters for like the end of this match.
Except for The Undertaker.
They wanted to get him out right away.
Yeah, but Kane, if you recall, Kane had broken the single Rumble match elimination number record. He comes out late this year, and he has a stare down with the Big Show when this is back when the crowd actually wanted to see these guys have a hoss fight. And this was actually a pretty decent hoss fight between these two for the time they were given. Kane picks the Big Show up for a body slam, and he chucks him over the top rope. Big Show does like a roll over the top and everything. It's probably my favorite elimination of the match next to Maven's. It was so clean. But Kane's appearance turns out to be pretty inconsequential here. Austin hits a stunner. Kurt Angle hits something that looks like an angle slam and tosses Kane out. Pretty inconsequential, pretty disappointing for Kane, but... Yeah,
and it would lead into their very... What's the word I'm looking for? Underwhelming match at WrestleMania?
We're getting ahead of ourselves. I liked that match. Spoilers.
We definitely are. And
anyway,
WrestleMania.
Number 29 in his first Royal Rumble is Rob Van Dam, who was white hot out of the invasion angle. A 5-star frog splash immediately on Kurt Angle. He runs wild on everybody until Triple H hits him with a pedigree, and Van Dam sells it like he's been shot by a large gun.
I was going to say that was a pretty brutal pedigree, and RVD was down all the way until number 30, Booker T comes out.
Yes, in his first Rumble match as well. Yeah, he is immediately tossed out by Booker T, and then Booker decides to do a spin-a-rooney in the middle of the Rumble.
And number 30 is completely wasted, and there he goes by Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yep. It's very quick eliminations here. But we have a final four of some of the best in-ring technicians ever. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Mr. Perfect, and Kurt Angle. That's a solid four there.
Oh, yeah, especially with the surprise of Mr. Perfect coming in there. And if it would have been more of a surprise, I feel like fans would have been more convinced that Mr. Perfect would have had a chance to win this match.
Exactly right. if Mr. Perfect just showed up and the crowd would like give him a bigger pop, I feel like they would buy into him being a contender here. But no.
Oh yeah.
Before that, Angle tosses Austin. Austin beats them all up with a chair afterwards because he's a pissed off redneck.
Yes.
Austin leaves. They eventually get up after selling it for a while. Mr. Perfect and Kurt Angle have an altercation. Now that's a dream match that never happened. We get a small sampling of that here. He hits the perfect plex on Kurt Angle for a huge pop.
And Jerry Lawler with the great line saying, "Was he trying to pin him?" Jerry Lawler's an idiot.
Even back then, the color commentators were idiots. Yeah, but perfect plex on Angle, and then Hunter pretty much tosses Mr. Perfect out nonchalantly. And then we have a final two of Triple H and Kurt Angle, Tomas.
Which I thought was pretty surprising how hot Austin was in the match, that he wasn't the final person to go against Triple H. But considering how hot Kurt Angle was, I think this was just as good.
Yeah, I think this win eventually by Triple H would not have been as effective if Stone Cold was in there with him, because Stone Cold was still a white popular babyface around that point, and Kurt Angle was a heel that everybody hated. So they wanted to see Kurt lose this, and boy did he. I mean, there was a point getting to the finish of the match. Kurt Angle backdrops Hunter over. Hunter hangs on. It's a false elimination. Kurt's celebrating even though he did not hear a bell ring. False elimination. He turns around into a face buster. Triple H clotheslines him out. Triple H wins the Royal Rumble, and the crowd loses their minds.
That elimination of Triple H clotheslining Angle over the top rope has to be definitely top 5 Royal Rumble finishes of all time. That was just a fantastic way to end the match. Triple H was so hot coming into this match. So hot as a babyface, I do not think you could have had anyone else win that Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, was there ever any doubt? He's just coming off of a career-threatening injury. This is how they should have booked the 2015 Rumble. Daniel Bryan coming back from an injury. They announce he's in the Rumble, and then they just toss him out in the middle of the match. Imagine if that happened with Triple H here.
Oh, man.
Like,
it would not have worked. Thank goodness they didn't go that way. Triple H is on his way to the main event of WrestleMania. We'll see how that turns out.
After a nice 69-minute Rumble match.
Nice.
There it is. I've been waiting so long to say that.
Overall, I would give this Royal Rumble probably a 7 out of 10. It had some good stuff. Like you said, to your point, a lot of these matches could have benefited from going a little longer, but I definitely think the Royal Rumble match was solid enough to give it. It was not a bad show whatsoever. It was a very good show.
Oh, 100%. This is one of my favorite Rumble shows, actually, to go back and watch. I actually gave it 8.25 out of 10. One of the top 10 Rumbles, in my opinion, if not top 5 in terms of booking. I mean, it felt like a 3-act structure movie. You have the opening. You know, you have people coming out. You have the Undertaker coming out and destroying people. The first act ends when Maven eliminates him. And then the second act, you have him beating the crap out of him. You have Stone Cold dominating for a bit. And then you have all the remaining heavy hitters coming in at the end for the climactic finish. One of my favorite Rumble matches, an outstanding world title match between Jericho and Rock, and a great street fight between Vince and Flair that was so much better than it had any right being.
You could definitely say the latter half of the show definitely shined in the main events.
100%, my friend. But yeah, Royal Rumble 2002, great show in my opinion. So expect so this is it for the review. Expect another one coming up for No Way Out 2002 next month, which is oh boy, there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about there. So look forward to that.
It's definitely going to be fun because I'm just going to say right now, we're going to talk about the NWO.
Oh, man, leaving the cliffhanger right there for those that don't know it. But yeah, the NWO would come into play. Vince and Flair, their feud, spoiler alert, was not over after this. It would continue for a while. But yeah, no, I thought this was a very good Rumble. Thank you once again, Tomas, for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me. Love bantering about wrestling.
Oh, me too. Me too. It's always a great time. So thank you all for tuning into the video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. With all that being said, back talk. commence.